How's everybody?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you. Oh, there's Clover. Clover only comes out when there's a downtown association meeting.
I actually quite look forward to seeing Clover's guest appearances on your camera. And I had a bit of a laugh. I was in a class last week, and there were 30 of us on screen for this class, and one of my classmates had a cat that would not get off her desk. Would not. And I thought of Clover.
Hey, Paul.
Hey.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, Paul.
Hello.
Okay, I'm just taking a look to see, make sure I have everyone on my list here. Nick, Luck, from your attendance records, do we have everyone we were expecting?
Looks
In terms
like
of the board,
everyone
anyway.
is here. Tom Vair's
Here's
just
Lisa.
joined.
Okay, I think we're at full.
Everybody but Frank is here, I believe.
Oh yes, sorry.
Frank.
How could I forget Frank? Sorry, don't tell him I said that. He'll usually pop on. Okay. Well, it is 5:30, so we might as well get started. Are we recording?
Yes.
Gentlemen, okay, good. Good evening, everyone. It is Wednesday, the 9th of February, 2022. This is the February board meeting of the Sault Ste. Marie Downtown Association. I'd like to welcome everyone. In attendance tonight, we have Salvatore, Marchese, and Nick Luck from our association staff. For board members, we have myself, Kristi Cistaro, Nicholas Rosset, Paul Mason, Angela Romano, Kelly Walker, Paul Scornaienchi, and Lisa Vezeau-Allen. For community members, we have our deputy CAO partner, Tom Vair, on the line. We also have another member of the community, Mark Brown, in attendance. And from the media tonight, I believe we have Mr. David Helwig in attendance. So thanks everyone for being here. I'm calling the meeting to order. And number 2 on our agenda is approval of the agenda. Does anyone have any concerns or anything to add? Comments? Okay. If there's no comments, then can I get someone to move to approve the agenda? Angela Romano, seconded by Paul Mason. All in favor? Show of hands, please. Looks like all in favor. Thank you. Next item is, sorry, just writing my notes here. Next item on the list is any declarations of conflict of interest. Does anyone have anything they need to disclose regarding the agenda items for tonight? Going once, going twice. Okay, we'll move on then. Next is our January 2022 minutes. I took a review and nothing stood out to me. Does anyone else have any additions, corrections, omissions to point out? Okay. Under the circumstances, then I will move to approve the minutes. Can I get a seconder? Paul Scornaienchi. All in favor, show of hands. Looks like everyone, thank you. So downtown security is the next item on our list here. Salvatore, did you want to get us started, or are we jumping right in with Tom?
I can start off. So yeah, as we've been doing, this is to look at extending security for another month. The RFP has gone out for the security in the downtown, and I knew it had an expected start date of March, but I will defer to Tom Vair to update where the status of that is.
Yeah, thanks, Salvatore. The RFP actually just closed today. And so I don't have an update on the number of bids. I think it was 4 p.m. today. So we hope to review those quickly, depending on the number of bids. And then we'll try and squeak it into the February 22nd council meeting. But I can provide the board an update over the next few days as we get through that process.
Excellent. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks.
So the question before the board then becomes, do we have approval from the board to extend our private security for one additional month to hopefully line up with the new program that's going to be in place sooner rather than later? I will move that we extend that contract with that service provider. Can I get a seconder on that? Paul Mason. All in favor, show of hands. Looks like everybody. Thank you. So that's passed.
Kristi, can I just ask a question?
Certainly.
It's more anecdotal. Salvatore, I saw from your report that last month there was nothing, zero incidents reported by the security. Is that correct?
That's correct, Lisa.
So I'm wondering maybe if it's a correlation between having the low barrier homeless shelter open at the Verde and the decrease in incidents. So I know that would be kind of difficult to prove data driven, but perhaps reaching out to the Verde folks that are running the low barrier shelter, and you might be able to kind of have some sort of connection between maybe some of them that maybe did hang out downtown or possibly were, in that area. So that might give you some idea as to sort of what impact that the shelters had on just our homeless population, but also with not having any incidents. I think that would be sort of an interesting connection between the two, because it's pretty obvious that we had zero incidents reported and a low barrier shelter was open in the same month. So there has to be some sort of connection to that.
I'm happy to follow up.
Alicia Cuglietti, who's the homelessness coordinator at DSAB. Thanks. More of a comment.
Anyone else have any additional comment? Okay. So we'll move on to one of our largest items to discuss tonight. We have our 2022 budget to review. Apologies, there was an omission in the one that was sent out with the initial board package, and there was a revised one sent out today. There were some issues, and the 2022 portion of what was sent out was missing. So please ensure that you're looking at the correct one. Does everyone have it in front of them? Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Salvatore to sort of walk us through that, and I can certainly assist with any questions and discussion. So Salvatore?
Thank you, Kristi. Okay, so everybody should have their proposed 2022 budget. Before I move into the 2022 numbers, we have the 2021 actual, which is in line with the P&L from last month. I just wanted to find out if anyone has questions regarding last year's numbers before we move on to what we project for this year. Okay. In that case, we can start looking at the budget. We will come back to the assessment and the assessment write-off numbers. I think it's best if we go through the actual core of the budget first. So we can look at other income, and the majority of this other income is for anticipated sponsorships and grants. For sponsorships, we've scaled back a little more than we did anticipate from last year, just given the COVID situation. There's an expectation that sponsorships could be lower, but we do anticipate receiving sponsorships. we'll also see that in the grant area, there's the Canada Summer Jobs Grant and the Poutine Piece Grant. So the Summer Jobs Grant has been submitted at that dollar amount, and the Poutine Piece Grants we have in, and we're awaiting word back on those. As well, you'll see another item on the list. It says Shop Local Bags. This is an initiative that's being developed to bring reusable bags to the downtown. The idea is that this would be a income generating item. We'd get sponsorships for the bags and also sell them at cost to the local merchants to provide their customers. I'm happy to answer any questions on that section of the budget before moving on, if anyone has any. Lisa?
I would just make a note, Salvatore, and this is normally what I do, is with your Canada Summer Jobs and under subsidized staff, so you have 21 and 21, is just make a note that obviously the expenditure isn't going to happen unless you get the grant. So that expenditure is like they're directly cancel each other out, but I always put a little asterisk and a note for the staffing, you know, dependent upon funding approval.
All right. Thank
Because
you,
some
Lisa.
people don't always see that.
Yeah.
Angela, you had your hand up?
Yes, just a question and comment, I guess. I'm happy to see the shop local bag listed on there. 'Cause a member had approached me initially about that initiative. So I just had one question regarding that, and it might be too early to say. Is the idea that if businesses want to be mentioned on the bag, they can pay a portion? Is that how it will work?
Correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's how we're anticipating doing it.
Okay, great. No, I think it's an amazing idea, so that's great.
Anyone else? If I'm not, my screen will only show me about 8 or 9 boxes. So if I'm missing anyone who has their hand up, please put your hand up. Okay, there we go. Kelly, go ahead.
Just with regards to the community art project, I see there's no funding set aside. With regards to the past initiatives, is that something we're not repeating this year? I had made an assumption that it was repeating.
So the community art project or the Summer Moon Festival funding was actually all given to us from the city of Sault Ste. Marie in one lump sum in the 2019 budget. So the income for all of those events was listed in that 2019 budget, but the expenses have been spread out over a number of years. And we believe this is the final year. Salvatore, correct me if I'm speaking out of turn.
Correct.
Is this the final year? Yeah. So this is the final year of expenditures tied to that income.
Thanks very much, Kristi, for the clarification.
It's always it always garners some questions. So we're quite well versed in what happened there by now. Anyone else have any questions about that? Okay. We'll move on then, Salvatore.
All right, so now I'll move into our expenses. So we'll move down into the salaries and benefits. The biggest change here is that we'll see wages have increased by a factor of about 8,000. And that is a combination of part of the beautification wage was subsidized last year. There was also a bump to the minimum wage and then expected raises for staff members. The subsidized salaries, as we talked about, they're offsetting from the Canada Summer Jobs Grant, and the rest of the items are pretty much in line with what they were last year.
Questions from anyone on that before we move on? Okay.
All right. Looking at office expenses, most items here have held close to what they were before. There is a increase for supplies, the supplies is the same. We were just under budget last year. The biggest change here would be, actually, there are no major changes here. There's just been some slight tweaks if anybody has questions on the office expenses.
Again, Anyone have anything they need clarification on? Okay.
Our advertising and communication. So we've bumped up the radio advertising just to align with what our expenses were for last year. And that is anticipating that we spend on our two big areas, or the street party and the Moonlight Magic. The billboard we're anticipating to use for Poutine Feast. Social media we held steady at the 500. We'd like to invest more in using the social media as it gets us a lot of views, and it also helps us build our followers and likes as we can invite those who see our posts. And then we, as well, for the print ad, we want to promote one of our events. So once again, the marketing and communications has pretty much held steady from last year.
Thank you, Salvatore. Anyone have any questions, need clarification on anything there?
Okay.
Don't be
That'll
shy.
bring us to, all right.
Sorry, did someone have something there? Okay.
So that'll bring us to our events and activities. So we'll see that the big expense here is the community art project. As we've stated before, that is the remainder of the funds that were committed to the project in 2019. They are all expected to be expensed this year. The downtown street party, we have expensed at $3,000, and that's looking to carry out 2 street parties. We have $500 budgeted for Shadows of the Mind Film Festival. That's going to be if we can do a movie night. We've had initial conversations with them, and they're looking to see if they want to do a standalone event or incorporate it into a street party. Moonlight Magic, we budgeted at $3,000, and it came in significantly under budget last year because of inclemental weather and the cancellation of the audio for the tree lighting ceremonies. The Greyhound season opener, once again, we held it at $700. There's about $400 that we didn't expense last year, and that was for the band, and that was just picked up by the Greyhounds, but we can't always guarantee they're going to pick up the band. And then we have the new initiatives budgeted at $750, and this is for the idea that people, ideas are brought forward throughout the year to try things, and this gives us some wiggle room to do that. If we do something and we decide we like that and want to do it in the future, then those items would be pulled out of new initiatives and given their own line to go forward. The Walk of Fame, that's a commitment we have with the city. That's our portion of providing hors d'oeuvres at the event. Poutine Feast, so we're budgeting it at $6,000 for the event. That was in line with what it came in last year. There's also going to be a contribution from Ermitinger for $5,000 that may offset some of that cost. And our Halloween on Queen, we're anticipating to spend about $600 this year. The longest garage sale, there shouldn't be very many expenses with that other than promotions. On this spot and Save the Clock Tower. So this is more for on this spot. Once again, on the spot approaches us every year about doing something to further the program, and we've had both the city and the museum reach out, and this is just some room if we want to proceed any of those types of endeavors. The shop local bags are listed here. We're anticipating them costing about $1,500. And then the Save the Receipt is expected to have 2 of those throughout the year, and that's budgeted at $250.
Okay. This is always our biggest chunk of expenses. Was there any questions on this? Anything anyone wants clarification on? I don't see any hands up.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Moving on to meetings and seminars. So the change here is in the conferences and training. And the item here, the reason it has increased is that by serving on the OBIA board, there's the requirement to travel to 2 in-person meetings a year. That cost is being offset back in the income. There's an OBIA line that has a contribution of $800 from them to pay for those expenses. The AGM is budgeted at $500 again. It could come in under, but in the event that we're able to do something, we'll have the funds there for it. I can move on to professional fees. So this just includes our audit and our bookkeeping. So our audit is pretty much set. It's going to come in at about 4,100. That's dictated by the municipality. And the bookkeeping, so although we're bringing it in-house, we do have the remainder of services from last year that has not been billed by KPMG that will come in and therefore need to be put on this year's expenses, as well as the finishing out of the accounts through the audit. So that's an estimate of what the funds, the cost should be for closing that out. I can move on to streetscaping. So our major item here is the security, and this is a combination of offering the security for the first couple months of the year, as well as the $5,000 contribution that was voted on by the board. And then our lights just came up about $600 because lights increased last year. We dropped our street unity beautification budget line by 1,000 from 5 to 4. Historically, we haven't really spent over 1,000, so it was an area to save some money. And then we have initiatives for, once again, things that may arise that someone wants to try.
Okay. Any questions, comments? Okay.
This brings us to our last category, the miscellaneous. So there's 2 items in the miscellaneous. Amortization. This is not historically shown on our in the budget that's brought before the board, but in terms of the budget that's produced by KPMG and which goes to council, the amortization is factored in. So we need to factor that into our budget here in order for it to balance with what we submit to council. So that was averaged at about 3,000 the previous year, and anticipated it should be similar this year. And then we just have our bank service charges at 225, which are higher than last year's because, at least for the time being, we have 2 accounts operating.
Okay. Lots of information there. Thank you to the Finance Subcommittee and Salvatore for all of your work in putting this budget together. But I will open it up to the Board of Directors for questions. Who wants the floor? Angela, it looks like you're up first.
I just had a question about the status of the speakers. Like, is there a reason why they aren't used too much? Like, are they not operational? And has that been budgeted for repairs or?
Okay, so we're crossing over into the the manager's report a little bit there.
Oh, okay.
So,
yeah,
but it's a fair point, and I think it is relevant to the budget. So, Salvatore, did you want to give us a little preview of your manager's report on that particular topic?
Yes. So I've followed up on the speakers, and as it turns out, there was a warranty, and it was only for 6 months through the provider. But the problem was those speakers were not outdoor speakers. They were indoor-outdoor speakers for a covered, like a patio that was covered. Okay. So it wouldn't have been covered anyways. It's not budgeted in here for new speakers. We're looking at doing that, but we would have to get some direction from the board that they would like to replace the speakers, and then we could have that discussion.
Okay.
Paul, you have your hand up?
Just to add to that, thank you, Salvatore. This just came up like not too long ago that we've learned of this information. So Salvatore and I will be looking at sponsorships to ensure that we get things up and running. You know, something of any sort. We have 3 irons in the pot, or I do. You know, some directions, and I'll let the board know which direction is most cost effective and most expeditious.
Okay. Thank you.
Who's next? Paul Mason, did you have your hand up? Okay, no. Lisa, Kelly, anyone? Paul Scornaienchi does. Go ahead, Paul.
Okay, so I just wanted to say that I had 1,000,001 questions when it was first presented, and then here we are. We don't have any, so I guess I asked maybe the right questions, and I'm thankful that Salvatore, first of all, was able to include all of that, but mainly that it's a bit early, and it's a great thing. I think that because we're earlier than typical, that we're not under the gun for approvals in order for ourselves to present this to City Council. So The big thing is a very large thank you to Salvatore and as well the finance committee to get this on the go so that we can get it through. I only had one other item, and I know that I had forwarded on via email, and I think it's come halfway. And I'm looking at the very, very top as far as the assessment write-offs and rebates. We take a look at the 2021 budget at 17,328 and like a minus, and this is for incidentally vacant properties, you know, those kind of things where individuals or member property owners are not paying into the levy for basically, you know, vacancies is what that is all about. And in the 2021 actual, we noticed that obviously it was rather full. We don't have as many as we anticipated, or even for that matter the year before, at 2,718. So I'm thinking, you know, at 13,000, an expectation of 13,000, I'm not sure if, you know, the membership is going to be thinking the falsity of that we're expecting more vacancies in our membership, because I know that that's not the case, but that number kind of alludes to that. And if I'm taking a look at that number, and then we're taking a look at the overall number, the net income loss at 14,818, which is correct. The deficit could be covered by the reserve, but it kind of could almost be closer to zero if we were to be putting an actual figure there of maybe about 3K or 5K. So I just leave that for thought for the board. Whether you're in agreement or not, I guess it really doesn't matter. It still, you know, balances out. It's just, I just didn't feel that the membership, you know, had the opportunity to allude that we're thinking that we're going to be more vacant this year, because that's not what we're thinking.
Additional comments, questions from anyone? Salvatore, go ahead.
So I do see your points to that, Paul. I would just like to add that I was also in talks with OBIA this past week, and it came up that in Toronto, they're mandated to set aside 10% of their budget for those write-offs and assessments, because the assessments could go back 4 or 5 years and not come through until the end. So we're sitting at 6%. So we could lower that, but just we'd have to be prepared that we could get hit as well. In previous years, we have had like $12,000 to $13,000 write-offs.
Most excellent. And, you know, I think that would be a great explanation to the membership. We'll be having all experiences of all BIAs. So accept that. Thank you.
Next comment. Okay.
Just a quick question here. Yeah. There's 2 line items where we set aside some money for the way that you worded it, Salvatore, was, you know, if something comes up that we want to give a try to, maybe a spoiler alert here to your manager's report. But since we do have something cooking that's looking promising, is there a point where we should maybe earmark some of that for that project? The zero vacancy is what I'm alluding to there. Or are we a little premature on that?
So the budget gives us the best idea of what we have going on right now. It's not to say we couldn't come back to the board if the zero vacancy moves forward and we need to expense something. There could be a vote to expense it and we could include it. I just don't believe we're far enough along to have it set into the budget right now.
Yep, fair enough. I was just thinking to earmark it so it's there, but okay, good.
Sorry, Nick, was there a second item or did you cover both of them?
No, that was all of it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Pardon me. Anyone else with any other comments or questions then about the budget as proposed? You guys are going easy on me tonight. Okay. Well, if there's no other comments or questions, then I am going to move that we approve the 2022 budget as presented. Can I get a seconder on that? Nick Rosset. All in favor, show of hands.
Kristi, just a point of order, because I vote on this at council, Ringo's agreeing with me. I won't, he's the mayor of Queen Street. I won't vote on it at this point.
You'll abstain. Perfect. Thanks, Lisa.
You're welcome.
Okay. So forgive me then. Can I get a show of hands voting in favor? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Paul Mason, I don't see you on my screen. Are you there?
I'm voting in favor.
Okay, 6. The budget passes then.
And Lisa, I'm pretty sure Chewy is the mayor of Queen Street.
You might have to have a dog competition event with
No
like
contest.
a special category
contest.
for board of director dog of the year or something. I'll put that on the agenda for the event subcommittee. So thanks everyone. So moving on to our next item then is our CIBC account closure. Salvatore.
Yes, so this has come up a few times in the past couple of months. We have 2 bank accounts existing. We had a few transactions that had to go through at CIBC before we could confidently close that. As of now, all the checks have gone through at CIBC. So it's just money sitting in the account that we are paying a monthly fee on. So it would be up to the board to decide if we want to maintain that account or move it over. There was no statements. They said they could reproduce for us for the last few years. I did inquire, but I am confident the checks have cleared that we have issued for the bank. We would still have our GIC, which would need to be discussed if we wanted to shift that as well. But in terms of the checking account, we are not using that.
If memory serves, our maturity date on our GIC is in April as well. So we would need to make a decision soon if we're going to move that, or otherwise we're committing for another year. Does anyone have any comments or questions on that? Any suggestions? No?
So do we have hard copies of previous statements though handy? Just if they can't provide anything for us, do we have what we need to make sure we can go back?
Yes, we have all our statements going back.
Okay.
We are required to submit them for the audit. So yeah, we have hard copies.
Right, but we have them in hand as well? Okay,
yes.
Good.
Anything else then? It's a shame Frank's not here. I'm hesitant to put a motion before the board to close this account without our treasurer in attendance. Does anyone have any concerns if we put this vote off until the March meeting? Comments, questions?
I'm thinking
Right.
that'd be the appropriate thing. I'm thinking that would be the appropriate thing to do, seeing that we do have a bit of time that we can have that happen. I'm also wondering if perhaps Salvatore could give the CIBC a heads up, just out of respect that we're not doing it and then the day after we're expecting it. So just to give them a heads up that that's a possibility.
Okay. Okay, I'll ask staff to move that agenda item to next month then. And we'll move into our financial statements for January. So the P&L was sent out to everyone. Hopefully you've had a chance to take a look at it for January. Does anyone have any questions or need clarification on any items in our P&L for January? Give you all a moment to take a look. Salvatore, the one thing that did stand out to me was that we took on all of our insurance costs in the month of January. I would suspect that's an annualized expense, and we've paid it all up front. Is that what's happened there?
That's correct. It comes due at the end of January for the year.
Okay, any other questions from anyone then? Do we need a few more minutes to look at that? No, I see people shaking heads. Okay. If there's no questions on that, then we'll move to subcommittee updates. Finance is first on the list, but I think we've we've gone through most of our finance discussions for tonight, and in Frank's absence. Salvatore, did you have anything update-wise for finance subcommittee, or shall we move on to the next?
I think we've hit all the things that we would have touched on. Yeah.
Okay, next is our service sector subcommittee. Kelly, do you have an update?
Just a couple of points to mention. We've got a few more of the featured articles that have gone out, and they're really fantastic. Most recently, we had Stone's office supply published. So feel free to take a read at that, support small business, of course, and like and share those social media articles. That would be fantastic. And just to mention that there is some relief through the Ontario Small Business Grant applications, grant through the government. Applications are being accepted until March 11th of 2022. And essentially eligible businesses that have been required to close their indoor operations throughout, step 2 of this, I guess, COVID restriction process would be potential businesses that would qualify for a grant like this. So just knowing that it's available to them, and the funding is in the amount of up to $10,000.
Just to add to that, I know there's an additional utilities and property tax relief program that's also available to a subsection of that group, a group in addition to that group that didn't have to do indoor closures. I believe that program opened in the middle of January, so that's available as well for members to apply, so look into it.
Excellent.
Anyone else have any additional comments or questions? Okay, so we'll move on then to communications. Angela, do you have an update for the group?
Yes, I had a chance to review the OBIA conference submission. It was a lengthy document, so I did a quick run through of that just to make sure it looked good, and there were a few edits required there. I also today had a chance to review the 2022 sponsorship package as well. Staff did a great job with that. Not too much needed there at all. And I've just been busy sharing our member posts. I also directed staff to share about the small business relief fund that Kelly just spoke about, that the portal is open. And I think there was a post that went out already today, so that's great. And the features that Kelly was speaking about, I've been sharing those as much as possible in the popular Facebook groups. So that's it.
Excellent. Thank you. Event subcommittee is next. That's me. I have been blessed with some new interest in participating in this subcommittee. So we have some new members that are looking to pitch in, which we're delighted about. So I'll be sending out a meeting invite this week to sort of get everyone introduced to each other, take a look at our events calendar that we put together prior to the end of the year, and get to work, because before we know it, our event season's going to be in full swing, and we have plans to have a robust and very enjoyable event season within safety guidelines as much as possible. Well, certainly within safety guidelines, but have as much fun as possible within safety guidelines this event season. So that is the only update I have on that. Salvatore, did you have anything event related to share?
No, I think we've touched on it for now.
Okay. And then last, oh, sorry, Kelly, forgive me. I forgot to ask if anyone had any questions. Kelly, go ahead.
I just wanted to know if we had a seat at the Bonsu table by any chance. And if we don't, if there's an opportunity to partner with Bonsu for 2023 and see how we can bring some of their events into our downtown as well.
Yes, so we don't have a seat at the moment, but tourism has reached out and they're trying to incorporate Bonsu next year into the downtown, and then we would have a seat at it, but we are also happy to explore that option going forward regardless.
Wonderful. I think it would be amazing, especially in our quieter season.
Great. Anyone else? Any other comments, questions? Okay, Paul, the floor is yours. Beautification.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Just an update with regard to the Bonsu windows. Mr. Mancuso's timelines really ran short. You know, there wasn't very much free time, I'll say, for himself to be doing those Bonsu windows, let alone the proposal that we were discussing with vacant property windows also being done. But that doesn't mean that the program is over or that the opportunity is done. We do have vacant properties. They do have windows, and we can dress them something generic, something permanent, something enjoyable. I'll ask Mr. Mancuso if he wants to extend that 50-50 sponsorship that he was offering us with the Bonsu proposal. So I'll keep in tune with Mr. Mancuso and let everybody be aware if there's an extension to that. But it won't be Bonsu related, I guess, is my update with regard to that. Street cameras, I read in the OBIA monthly that the city of Barrie, the BIA of Barrie, was very successful in attaining security systems for all of their members in their downtown. And we are researching with the BIA of Barrie as well as OBIA as to how that can happen for our membership. And it's working real well. It goes in hand with what Mr. Vair has been busy getting going with the proposals that he's received today. So I think it's a great combination that we can combine some of that information and perhaps even get some answers that Lisa was alluding to earlier. I think everything helps. So we're Salvatore and I will be taking a look at that this coming month, the month of March. The speakers was an update that just came up in the executive report, and I did let everybody be aware that we'll look at those 3 opportunities to have them sponsored or granted. One of them is a grant. Paul, I see your hand up.
Related to speakers, finish if you question before you go on. Is speakers a conversation to have now, or at the executive report level, or at the committee level?
Well, it's in the executive report, but if you're asking, what we found is we've had a local vendor take a look at the existing speakers. And that would be the speakers that are wired, and as well the wireless speakers that are provided in the Heritage Square. And they've found that there's obviously there's a definition of waterproof and a water resistant, that they're waterproof. And they're, as Salvatore alluded to, they're good for indoor, outdoor, but without rain or water constantly being put on them. So that's what we're looking at, and that's just that's a report that was given to us. Obviously, they were working for a long period of time, so maybe there's more information that we could dig out of the existing to see if maybe they're semi-salvageable, all salvageable, or non-salvageable. So. Okay. We're in the midst of looking at that.
Okay, I just want to know what the situation is before we commit more money to this, given the fact that they're all dead now.
For sure.
Okay. I just want to go ahead without discussing as a board is something we want to continue with, or if our funds are best spent elsewhere. That's all.
Gotcha. The last item that I have is sign blades. We were speaking in another meeting with regard to side blades and how some interest is being sparked up with our membership with what they've seen at the Rousseau building. I think that's what we're calling it now, the Rousseau building at the corner of Elgin and Queen. And people are finding that some of these sign blades are rather expensive. Lisa was expeditious, and thank you, Lisa, for forwarding on some of the research that you have done for G4G on Gore Street. And I forwarded that on to Salvatore and Kristi. And I've also found that there are some grants available for those sign blades. So we're in hopes that we'll be able to have a, I'll say, a downtown association standard sign blade that we can provide to every building in our downtown membership. And as well, you may remember that I had proposed that the bottom of the sign blade be a removable item where somebody could slip out Ergo Office Plus and put in Savoys because, you know, you've moved locations or your tenants are revolving. But at least the main sign blade could be something of, I don't know, a proposed downtown association logo with maybe in the upper left-hand corner the address 477, just so that it makes it easier on a signage and wayfinding point of view for our tourists and as well our locals. So we're in process of taking care of that. Salvatore and I will get together in the month of March to do that.
Angela, you had a question or comment?
Yes, just on the beautification. As far as some of the banners I have noticed seem to have seen better days this winter, some of the winter ones. Is there some money budgeted for replacement of those, or?
So what we're finding, or what we've found when we were discussing the heritage block and the telephone poles that were, if you recollect, it was maybe a 2-year period of time, some due to COVID and some to do with other logical reasons that the PUC couldn't get them up in time. And, you know, we did some research as far as those, the holders of the blade or of the banners, that they are best on a spring, mainly because we do have some vehicles that go up and down Queen Street that are quite tall, and some of them do get hit, and that's why we had some in disrepair from one of our previous meeting updates. So what we're looking at is to have them on the inside of the post so that, you know, we can rest assured that not very many vehicles hit them and that they be on springs. So we're re-looking the whole thing yet again. And with that, and all municipalities incidentally are running into the same scenario I've discovered, that this would be something that would be on a grant scenario, therefore not budgeted for this fiscal year.
Okay.
Something else just to keep in mind where those are concerned with the Queen Street resurfacing project coming up in the next 2 years. There may be some changes to specifications and fit. So that may be something we want to look at planning to work in tandem with that project so that, so that they work and hopefully hold up. We did get, I believe we got about 4 years out of this last iteration. So, you know, realistically, that's probably about as much as we can expect to take 4 years worth of weather beating out of them. So quality wise, I think they held up, but definitely, yes, we've had a few, we've lost a few in the last year at least. So
sure. I should also add that doesn't mean that the banners can't be replaced. Salvatore and I have, well, there already is a program in place that if anybody wants to be replacing those banners with, you know, something that they're wanting to advertise in our downtown or even outside of our downtown, i.e. Shadow of the Mines, that they certainly can replace our existing banners with theirs at any point in time, and that's an income generator for us.
any other questions or comments then for Paul?
I don't have anything further unless anybody has more questions.
We're a quiet bunch tonight. Looks like we'll move on to the executive report then. Thanks, Salvatore.
Yep. So we'll just go through the list. So security services we've covered. Year-end finances. So everything's in with the auditor. Without going into the whole process, it's just every year this is a very tight time frame to get everything done between the requirements of the auditor and the city. Things have to happen pretty quickly. So the expectation, and I got confirmation that we are on target, is for financials to come to the March 9th meeting. And then we would have the AGM on March 10th. The rationale being that's about as late as the city can give us to have it in order for tax bills to go out. Looking to the OBIA bid, as Angela said. She took a review of it. It has been submitted, and we are just waiting on feedback. That should be circulating through the various departments at OBIA now. Walk of Fame from our last meeting, there was a request for the list of past winners to come forward. Ms. Zupa at the city said she hadn't received all those lists yet, so she just requested that we move that to next month's meeting. Save the receipt. So we ran the promotion for 2 weeks. It was very successful this time around. We had 50 submissions for the contest. It generated just over $3,500 in sales. It had a cost of about $128 to put on, and it really represented an array of businesses throughout the downtown. We had submissions from all over. The Canada Summer Jobs application has gone in. So we requested 3 students. So we have the events coordinator that we usually request. We also have somebody to help with membership services, and this is in terms of updating the member list and just building a database for our member, or for us to have of our members. And the third position would be for another feature article writer. It worked out great last year, and this time we could have them work on more articles. We've had requests from businesses. They would like their business to be featured. So we're just waiting on that, but initial feeling is that it should go forward. Looking to digital main streets. So I don't know how many of you remember, but this was something that was initiated a number of years ago. And I had met with some of the businesses in town, and it didn't have the most positive reception with them. And I reached out to OBIA to see if I could have a discussion with Digital Main Streets to see how we could possibly bring this back, because the program does have a lot of appeal through the rest of the province. It looked like we were part of the initial round, and there were a lot of hurdles that they have cleared. So I had a meeting with economic development today, and it looks promising for them to be on board. And I'm going to talk with the chamber to see if they want to come on board. But it looks like we could bring this program back, and that would allow for there to be digital support, or support for businesses to go online, or social media training, and provide grants for up to $2,500. Poutine Feast, that's
Salvatore,
yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, didn't see the hands. Yes.
Paul Scornaienchi, do you want to go first?
Sorry, you go ahead first, Kristi. So sorry.
I just wanted to add, I was a recipient, one of the participants of the Digital Main Street, and it was a rather significant time investment in terms of the qualification period. Not without value, like it's hard to find the time, I get that. But there was a significant amount of content there that was very, very useful. So hopefully, if they can kind of find a happy compromise, people will take advantage of that program. I did also want to remind staff, if they're advertising grants for folks to improve their digital presence, the spring intake for the Now program, which is through it's the Northern Ontario Women's Program. It's a granting program for majority female-owned businesses. The spring intake closes April 30th. It's a very straightforward application process, and it's a $5,000 grant, up to $5,000 grant for redoing websites. So let's make sure that we're including that in any communications as well. Paul Scornaienchi, your turn.
Just a question for you, Salvatore, and correct me if I'm wrong. From what I understand, Digital Main Street is being run through OBIA. It's a provincial mandated item, not provincial mandated, provincially funded item, and I'm wondering if we're just proposing it to our membership, are we not going outside of our membership, because it's a Main Street or a downtown grant, not necessarily just our membership. So,
yes. So to your point, yes, it's expanded where it's just not the downtown and Main Street anymore. It's to the whole municipality. And that was part of my goal with bringing economic development on board, is that if we could work together to get this program running, I could focus on the businesses in our membership, and economic development could try promoting this to the businesses outside of our boundary, but together we could work to bring the program back.
Excellent. And then, of course, there'd be that opportunity to have those individuals who are not members, but they could become partners of the Downtown Association. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Excellent. That's all I had for that one. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have any other questions before we let Salvatore move on to the next item? Okay, moving on.
Sorry, Kristi?
My apologies. Is that Tom?
Yeah, it's me, Tom. Sorry about
Go
that.
ahead, Tom.
We'd be happy to work with you on that program. And I just wanted to say, unfortunately, I have to pop out early, so I have to jump out of the meeting. But thanks, everyone, for your time, and we'll be in touch soon.
We appreciate you joining us, Tom. Thank you very much.
Okay, take care. Bye.
All right, so I will continue. So Poutine Feast, we've had 2 meetings with Poutine Feast. Things are moving along. We've taken the recommendations from the events meeting about how we need to amend the MOU. We've put in 2 applications for grants. There was a hiccup with one, but it looks to have been resolved. So that one is still working through to see if we'll receive funding for that. And yeah, the grants are looking to just enhance our programming if those should come through. We've also obtained quite a few quotes for a lot of the services, so we should have a better idea of what this is going to cost. For free parking signage, so as of the last board meeting, there was a request to see if we could put bags or signs on the meters. We did reach out. The response was that they don't have enough bags and they would like it if we didn't put signs on the meters. So to that effect, we have tried to do what we can through doing printed flyers to stores, MailChimp letters. I've been telling people I see at the meters when it was not being paid, not to pay the meter. But we're trying to get the word out there as much as we can, given the requests from parking not to cover up the actual meters themselves. The outdoor wireless speakers we've touched on, and then the zero vacancy, which Nicholas Rosset alluded to earlier, is we had a meeting last night with Kyle from the Sudbury BIA, and he had a lot of positive things to say about the zero vacancy there. He has compiled all the information they've put together on the program into a folder that he has shared with us, has all the details on the leases, the insurance, the process. So it was a positive meeting. We're looking to communicate with the city now, and I have a meeting set up tomorrow with Mr. Vair to start that discussion as well. We just obtained our updated landlord list, so we can start trying to make certain connections to see who might be interested in such a program.
Excellent. Questions, comments? Paul Scornaienchi, your hand's up first. Paul Mason, you're up next.
Mine is such a simple semantic. Could we kindly move the executive report from item number 10 for our next meeting to like item number 5? This way, at least, you know, Salvatore, we're regurgitating a few items 2-3 times. Not that we don't have time, because I love this meeting, but it's just to save Salvatore for having to answer questions, I think, a couple 3 times.
Excellent. Thanks, Paul. Paul Mason, you had comment, question?
Again, just to the speakers, are we in a discussion about as a board about if something we're going to continue through with, the costs associated with that, or is somewhere it's going to, I'd like to discuss this as a board, see if something we want to continue with is going to cost us money in the future. Because we, you know, I don't want to throw good money after bad.
So I think what Paul Scornaienchi from Beautification mentioned was that he's looking into our options, and
Great.
he's going to
Awesome.
present options to the board if we wanted to spend money or if we wanted to, what the plan is, what our options
Awesome.
are.
That's it.
Okay.
Awesome.
Paul Scornaienchi, did I speak out of turn there, or is that?
Absolutely perfect. That's correct. Our main goal, obviously, is to have it granted for whatever beautification expenditures that we have. And we found on the signage end of things, including bags that go over top of parking meters, that could be, you know, part of that whole program, because signage grants are, there's a lot of them with an aging society and with wayfinding. They're putting a lot of money in those areas. So those areas look a little bit more promising than some of the other ventures, but that's where we look first.
Paul Mason, anything else?
No, that's great. So
Anyone else
why to
have
hear.
anything? Excellent. Anyone else have any comments or questions regarding the executive report? Okay, thank you. Our next item then is a closed session item related to Municipal Act Section 239 sub 2 sub D as it pertains to labor relations or employee negotiations. So as a closed session item, I will ask any members of the public or media and staff to leave the meeting for the time being. If anyone would like me to text them when we come back into open session, I can certainly do that. Does anyone have any questions? Does anyone want me to take their number to message them once we're back in open session? David, are you still on the line? I think I have your number unless it's changed. David, hello? Okay.
I think I'm fine here. Thank you.
Okay, so you'll leave us now then?
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, David. I believe
Mark Brown left. He's on the chat.
yeah, Mark Brown and Mr. Vair have left. We've lost our 2 staff members as well. Okay, so we are now in closed session. So the item for discussion tonight. Oh, Paul Scornaienchi, go ahead. Paul, you're muted.
We can't hear you, Paul.
I see in the upper left-hand corner on my screen that record is still on.
Oh, let me text.
Good catch, Paul.
Thank you. I'm taking minutes for closed session, just in case anyone's wondering, but Salvatore.
Good eye, Paul.
I'm just not as good with my mute button still.
I don't think I have the right permissions to turn it off, unfortunately.
At least we can all show up now and have video and audio.
Yeah.
Let me try Nick.
Oh, there he is. He's on.
Oh, hey, Nick. You're muted.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm gonna turn off the recording now.
Perfect. I will text you guys when you can rejoin us. Okay, thank you.